Even if you're top 10, you can duo with people as low as GM4.
Wait, is that true? If you're plat, that's basically you queuing as like a high plat player with your low silver friend, but if that low silver friend is actually on a Smurf account and they're actually a plat player, that is crazy.
He can't outmuscle any of the tanks. There's just as many, if not more, stuns, boops, and slows in Overwatch 2 than there were in Overwatch 1. Every new hero has mobility, a lot of the old ones got more. And then lastly, Minefield got demoted to competing for the worst tank ult. I mean, that's as good of a list as any to just not play the hero.
Picture yourself going 4-0. You're 1 win away from finishing your card and seeing that sweet rank up, but you can't get it. You lose, and you finish at 5-5. You never got to see your rank go up. You were never rewarded for those 4 wins, but boy did you feel the pain of those losses.
I hate Overwatch. It's awesome. Hopefully you guys got the Kanye reference on the thumbnail and clicked on it, otherwise this video is going to be a flop. If it does, then I'm going to change the title and thumbnail to go full clickbait. Yeah, it's also an underrated album, you should listen to it. Within the last week or two, a few videos seem to be surfacing about Overwatch's problems. In particular, one by Yeetle on how Ball has fallen, another by SK more widely about the rank system, and one by Flats2 reacting to said video. There was also a lot of controversy on Overwatch Twitter, where big creators like Stylosa and Flats were receiving a ton of backlash for complaining about how the game got a lot of negative reviews on Steam, while also making negative content around the game. I want to quickly summarize these things and share my thoughts on the topic, because there's definitely a few interesting things to note. The first is the state of tanks at the moment. Yeetle alluded to this with the Wrecking Ball video, which I thought was pretty decent, explaining why Ball's fallen out of his current state, but this is more generally across the tank role. When the leaderboards came out for top 500s, because you need to win 50 games to be on the actual leaderboard, you could get top 30 on tank just by being Grandmaster. Unsalted Salts, a British streamer who's best known for his hog, had this to say, spitting reality of how tank is a dogshit role and no one wants to play it. It's sad to say I love Overwatch, but this rock paper scissors / being able to do nothing but make space is the most boring gameplay ever on tank. Who wants to log into a game just to make space? That's your gameplay. Nerfs need to be put into place for the support and DPS role. I get one shot as a tank, but I can't kill. I get CC'd way too much, and healing is too OP, so I can only make space. I don't want to flame support role or DPS, but it's so draining being a tank player. Now I made a video explaining why support was the best role in Overwatch, and in short, it's not just because of their utility, but it's also because of how easy it is to use that utility and get value with it. If you're playing any tank in the game, especially ones that don't have shields, what the fuck is the counterplay to being naded? If you're D.Va and you can eat it, or you're playing Reinhardt and you can track nade, that's all good. But if you're playing Queen and you get naded, your shout is without a doubt being forced, and you might even just die because of it. The utility in Overwatch is just too strong. Slice the nade duration in half, and tank play feels way more comfortable. Now nade timing actually matters. I haven't even touched on Discord, and defensive utility like Suzu, Lamp, and even Life Grip. It feels impossible to do anything on tank but make space, and that's probably why the tank queues are so short. Nobody is queuing tank. And compare that to the support role, which is way more fun, way more impactful, and we just added a hero that is basically the Sojourn of supports. I recently did a poll, asking you guys on YouTube and on Twitter whether you preferred 5v5 or not, and at the time of writing, about 60% of you preferred 5v5. One key aspect to actually implementing 5v5 was to reduce queue times, but people still don't want to play a role that's not fun. It's not even like tanks themselves are unfun, but just that the rest of the hero cast isn't enabling them to be. Why bother playing tank if you're going to be playing into Bastion, Reinhardt, Honor, and be forced to play this NPC playstyle? In fact, have fun playing Zarya against that, because you're going to get rolled no matter the playstyle you choose. Even if it works, it's just boring. As Salt said, you're just there to create space and nothing else. As for the DPS heroes being too powerful, that's a bit more on the debatable side. I think I'd agree that it's harder to get value out of DPS compared to just clicking one button on Honor and killing the entire team, but it can definitely be tough to play against something like a Soldier running rings around your team, or a Bastion preventing your aggression entirely. Even if you manage to switch playstyles and win, that's not the point, because it's not fun. It doesn't fix the issue of players not wanting to play that role. Before I continue, I'd like to mention that if you want to get coaching, check me out on Uscrim, link below, and on with the video. Speaking of 5v5, I do want to touch on that too. There was a whole thread trying to explain why 5v5 was so inferior to 6v6, which I found to be hilarious considering half the entire thread was debunked by an SVB video made 2 fucking years ago. Months before the alpha version of Overwatch 2 was even out. I even made a tweet about it. Now I won't lie, 5v5 isn't perfect, and most of the points in the threads were true, but as I've repeated many times on this channel, just because a point is true or valid doesn't mean that very same point matters in the grand scheme of things. Sure, the game is less team-based now, but there's nuance. The game isn't an entire FFA, it still has team-based elements, it's not black and white. SVB literally brought this up.
Again, it's not binary, guys, it's a scale. On the one end, you have the completely solo carry games, and on the one hand, you have all the teamwork games. Right now, Overwatch is on the teamwork side of things, and really deep in there. And yes, while we might enjoy that teamwork aspect, and I love that teamwork aspect, it's also what makes the game horrible to play. Most of the time it goes wrong, and it goes wrong pretty often. So we're not saying go all the way this way, we're not saying go all the way to solo, but let's bring it back into the middle a little bit, so that you still have teamwork elements, but also as an individual you can do more and feel more powerful. That seems pretty reasonable to me.
And then another argument I hear about tank synergies and combinations. I'm sorry, but even in Masters, I hated having to rely on a second tank. I had to rely on my incompetent Zarya to bubble me as Ryan, or my Diva to DM me while walking or jumping in. There was no synergy for 90% of the player base 90% of the time. Sure, it felt great when it worked, but it almost never did. And point 8 in this thread falls under that idea as well. There's also the rock, paper, scissors kind of thing, which I think is true, and while Spyro did make a video kind of debunking that, it kind of misses the point in that having to switch to a completely different playstyle just so you can barely play the game isn't fun. For example, referring back to that Zervasa game, me playing with Martrin to Ryan, Bash and Ana, I'm technically 1v3ing. As Unsalted Salt said, I'm creating space. But I have to play an extremely boring block-based playstyle in order to just win. I have to rely on my teammates to capitalise off that 1v3 instead of me being able to punch. And yet we ask players why they're not queuing tank. It's because of this, the boring dogshit block-like gameplay you see on your screens. This is why. Great album by the way, no more music references I promise. As a result, the queue times thing is true, but that's caused by nobody wanting to queue tank. As for the rest of the threads, point 11 has no further elaboration, point 6 doesn't matter, point 12 doesn't matter, point 5 basically repeats the tank combos thing. The whole thread is a bit of a mess. And before I continue, I want to gloss over the content creator controversy, which got so big that Flats even made its own response video to it, and I want to share my thoughts. In short, if you didn't know, content creators critiqued the Overwatch community on Twitter for putting bad reviews on Steam. Then Twitter called out these content creators for influencing the community to have said opinions by making negative content. First off, I want to just say, this is true. I will give them some leeway a bit later, but people like Flats and Stylosa undoubtedly influence hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people to have negative views on Overwatch. And you might say millions is excessive, but think about the amount of people who've seen the thumbnails of Flats' and Stylosa's negative content, but they didn't click on the video. Being very generous and assuming 20% of people saw the video from Flats that got over 500,000 views, that means 2.5 million people saw that thumbnail and title and got that perception of Overwatch. It's why when people like Flats say, "Did you watch the video?" it doesn't really matter. The packaging of that video, in terms of the title and thumbnail, matter a lot for its perception, and it's explained by the halo effect. But I do want to say that even though content creators influence the community's perception to some degree, it's not the end all be all. In short, it's not that deep. For example, a large portion of the Steam reviews are just bad reviews from China, an audience that people like Flats and Stylosa have little to no say over. There's also videos way more popular than Flats or Stylosa's, like Video Game Donkeys, that have probably been seen at least tens of millions of times. Those videos also have influence. And it's also the job of these content creators to make content that attracts the viewer. Being clickbaity is nothing new, nor is it immoral or unnatural. Content creators are just like you, watching this very video. They are people with rent to pay, taxes to pay, and like a business, they have other people to pay too. I will say, I do kinda wish content creators like Flats and Stylosa were just a bit more transparent about that, and about why they clickbait, because the average person either doesn't know, nor do they care. So that's my 2 cents on the whole content creator backlash thing, and I hope I was fairly balanced to both sides there. Twitter isn't the place for nuance, unfortunately. And that's it for the video. Let me know your thoughts down below on any Overwatch related topic that's been brought up, and I'll try and reply to the best ones. Shout out to my channel members, Sloth Dust, Eggs Benny, Ushi Up, Wix, Broken by 50%, Suffering, Chris Jones, and Craig. And let me know your thoughts down below. Until next time.